Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric, this being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Sinner. So in this episode, kind of taking a lot of what I thought last episode and completely throwing it in the trash because nothing, once again, I mean, that's the beauty of this show because nothing is ever what it seems because as the story flushes out more and more, you're like, oh, this is what this means and this and that. For one, I thought the lady last episode, her name was Beth. It's Bess. So that's one correction. Two, it turns out that Adam and Bess aren't like people like, oh, they're fake people who kidnap. Like, I was like, why would Julian go with them if that was the case? And that should have been the thought in my head to be like, okay, so obviously, I mean, he does know them in some shape or form. I was wondering why he did kind of go along with it. It's like, no, it's because he does know them because... Well, for one, it's also interesting, too, because I'm going to be all over the place with this, so I do apologize. But the fact of the matter is his mom, her demeanor kind of changed last episode, at the end of last episode, and now she's just kind of like, I don't understand what's going on. But it's like, you were so stone-faced at the end of the first episode, I couldn't help but notice that. I was like, that's weird. You would think in this circumstance you'd be a little more frantic, but I was like, okay, maybe the excuse is you don't know the details. Actually, stuff later on makes you go, no, you knew exactly what was going down because... Before they went to go talk to the manager, like, Heather remembers seeing that same dude she ends up looking and seeing at Mosswood, she also saw there. So Vera, his mom, knew exactly what was going down even before she showed up. But she showed up there acting ignorant, like, I don't understand what's going on, what happened. Oh, Adam and Bess? Oh my God, what happened? Why do you think it's like she's, because there's a lot more to that situation. But basically, it seems like they live in this community, Mosswood, and there's at least like 30 people out there to kind of keep to themselves. It's kind of like, I don't know if it's necessarily like a religion thing. It's just kind of like just this community that's out there. It's interesting because it seems like everyone knows about it and everyone steers clear of it because like they've tried going after Mosswood before, but it's never worked. It's kind of like, you hit them, they kind of hit back type of situation. And the sheriff or captain or chief or whatever, Heather's bringing this up to him. He's kind of like, let's not go down that road before. Because apparently they've gone down that route before, but it was so much of a headache that it just wasn't worth it. And he, like, it's just kind of like to keep things calm. Because even everyone whispers around, wait, that boy is he's from Mosswood? It's like, okay, so that's so interesting because it spirals out from there because one girl heard it like when Heather was kind of talking about it, and I guess it spread like wildfire because one of the reporters later on is calling like, oh, is he from Mosswood? Is that what that's all about? So it's like they have to try and shut that down because it must be like it's a big thing in that town. Because even the judge later on when it's the whole questioning about, like, because Heather has to prove guardianship, but she doesn't have all the paperwork she needs because there's a lot of stuff like proving that it's like, oh, he's homeschooled, but like you haven't set it up so that Mosswood is like registered as a homeschool place. You need paperwork for that. And then just kind of like, but my son is in foster care and in a foster home and he's so terrified. She's like, honestly, like, I know where you're from, the whole Mosswood situation. I know what your son's accused of, and I have more faith in him in the foster home system than you. And it's like, oh, wow. So there's definitely kind of a bias in that situation because, like I said, there's always something. Like, it seems like every once in a while something about Mosswood comes up. It creeps people out. People go there, don't come back out. Other people go there, come back. And one example was a dude who ended up killing himself like the next day after coming. But he was like this star football player or something, and it's like, oh, he like, oh, his entire life was in front of him. There's no way he would just do that out of nowhere. It shocked everybody type of thing. I mean, what's even crazy is that literally his mom, Vera, literally whispered in his ears, like, and Harry's looking at her do it too. It's just kind of, she's pretending like, are you okay? Okay, oh, my sweet boy. And I'm like, is she doing that thing she's doing? And Harry's looking at her. I was like, I don't know whether I was like, is she whispering, like I said, I didn't know if this like a religious thing or not. It's like, is she, saying? And it's like, nope. She was basically telling Julian to change his story. So even though he confessed the other day, now he's changing his mind. But like, there were proper... I mean, I guess because like there were proper people around when he confessed. It's not like they coerced them out of it. They just kind of pointed some stuff out and he admitted it to like them what he did. But now he's backpedaling because his mom's in the picture. And now it makes you wonder, like, what's up with that? Like, obviously his mom does have some sway. We do know that, like, obviously it came up last episode about like how she's helping him with the whole Shadow Julian thing, which is interesting because we elaborate on that a little bit in this episode. Essentially, when she says shadow Julian, basically there's good and bad in everyone that people hide, and they try to bring that shadow to light. So it's not necessarily like, because I was wondering, does he have like a split personality, or I guess the proper titling for it now is like dissociative personality disorder. It's like because before it was like multiple personality disorder. I don't know why. I'm sure maybe there's a medical reason why they kind of changed it to dissociative, but nevertheless, maybe that's a more accurate representation of it. But nevertheless, I was wondering if it was something like that, but it maybe not. But then again, there's the whole way he was acting before, kind of like making those noises. Last episode kind of freaking Heather out, so it's kind of like maybe there's something to that. But now when you get that whole shadow thing, you're like, no, that's what that's about. But it's interesting because, like, even a nightmare he's having about the person in a black cloak, like sticking their fingers inside of his hand, like their fingers inside of his stomach. Like Harry's saying that might be like a manifestation of trauma. Like basically, nightmares are kind of how kids manifest. Like it's their way of dealing with trauma, whether it be like mental or emotional or like physical. Which it could be a combination of what happened to Julian, he doesn't know. Because Harry ended up talking about the fact that he was kind of in his... I mean, I like that conversation. It was kind of interesting. Like, he's like, okay, because for Julian, it's like everyone that's not a part of Mosswood is an outsider. You promise to help someone even though you don't know them. And it's like, okay, so I want to, it's not fair from... And then Harry kind of takes a different approach. It's like, you can ask me questions. So it's like, why do you have the beard? It's because I think I have a weak chin and it looks more opposing and people will probably respect me. Look, kind of show more authority, which is interesting. I guess when it comes to people, he kind of has an inferior, like... He feels inferior in some shape or form, so that's what it manifests as. So that was kind of an interesting thing. But he also talked a little bit about his own situation. He doesn't dive too specific in details, but the fact of the matter is... But I think it's more of a situation of like, well, his mom wasn't like unable to look after him, like when he was much younger than Julian. And then the fact of the matter is, like, we see the whole thing with the fire. Like, it seems like his mom didn't die. Like, she might actually still be alive, most likely, because it's not like he was like, oh, she died later on. But it's like at that moment, whatever happened is like she's still alive. I'm assuming. Like I said, like the house he drove by, I assume that's supposed to be their old house, but maybe new people live there, or maybe his mom still lives there and the place just got remodeled or something. Maybe the fire didn't spread as far as we know. Maybe it just stayed there with the curtains. Who knows? I mean, if I remember correctly from the first episode, it looked like it spread out quite far. But like I said, maybe just the house got remodeled. So maybe his mom lives there. He just hasn't stopped by. But I'm assuming because he was in a foster home situation too, he had nightmares, and maybe what we're seeing right now are some of his nightmares too. That's why he's able to speak so heavily on the situation. So that's why, like I brought it up before, that this season's definitely gonna be interesting, because obviously even with Cora, he made a lot of comparisons. Like a lot of stuff went down in their lives differently things, but it kind of had adverse effects on them. Like as I talked about last episode, he was talking about the fact is what people did to us when we were younger. That's not on us. That's not our fault. So I'm thinking that kind of applies in this case as well of him. But maybe we'll kind of see even more parallels between him and Julian in this particular case. I don't know. It's just kind of fascinating. Because she's definitely got well connections, because she ended up finding out that Harry ended up talking to Julian without like a lawyer or anybody present. And it's like, she's like basically going to bring up charges against him, like file a report against him for doing that. But I guess, like, Harry knows kind of like the loopholes around certain situations about like, oh, I can talk to someone under these certain conditions, because that's basically what him and Heather were kind of talking about. Because the fact of the matter is, because obviously she's not as well versed in the law, what she kind of wants to make it seem like she is, But what's kind of interesting for her is like, she's like, I know what the real monster is. You won't find anything here, even though they're trying to come to Mosswood. Obviously, like I said, the captain/chief, he's like super reluctant about it, but it's like, hey, there's even a dude who owns the car. His name's Danny. He's a sex offender. That comes up in the conversation. They're like, I think people deserve a second chance. It's like, oh, he's reformed and everything, because it's like, shouldn't a mother be a little worried about, there being a sex offender around their child? Like, I mean, to be fair, we don't know what the exact charges were for that situation, but still, it's still a situation of like, you think as a mother, you'd be very concerned, because even he was like, yeah, like he's like, you kind of run things around here. She's like, there's no hierarchy, and start talking about everybody's position, and then she gets the break, and he's like, just police officer is fine. So it's kind of like, oh, that's kind of like almost a dagger, because she's just looking at you, saying, because she doesn't know what to call you. So I think that's kind of, inadvertently. It's kind of like a spit in the face, but it's a, that it might be just me reading too much into those situations. But what's also interesting is there's the girl Jess. She has the same necklace that Bess had, and it's like, oh, what happened? Oh, she gave this to me. It's like, really? Why would she give you something that must be super important to her if she figured she was coming back in a few days? Because the whole excuse is like, oh yeah, like they're going to Niagara Falls, like, oh, like they forgot Julian's bag, they were absent-minded. But then it's like, she gave that to you, that necklace, because she knew they weren't coming back. And then, you know, so that is the question, like, because it's like now they're like, the theory now is like they were escaping is what that was all about. So was that like them legitimately? So maybe that's why he killed them, because he was punishing them for the fact is that they were trying to run away. Like, for whatever reason, whatever like was happening between Adam and Bess, maybe they were trying to pull each other away. They were just using this as an excuse to run away like forever. And they were trying to get Julian out of this situation because they felt bad, because they were just like, oh yeah, this boy's mixed up. And like I said, it seems like, I'm not, you know, you can't help but jump to those conclusions that they're kind of setting this up to be almost like a cult like thing. Maybe, you know, ultimately it won't be that, but it's like, it seems like that might be what they're kind of implying in this situation. Like I said, these are early judgments. Obviously, we still have to wait as the story progresses, because obviously, like I said, a lot of stuff I had thought, what my thoughts about it in episode 1 completely like undone because of this episode, because it's like, no, we got clarification on a lot of things. So, but that does beg the question, like, were they trying to run away with Julian? Because it's like, no, like, they were scared for his sake. Like, they thought, like, whatever was happening there wasn't safe for him, because he is also the only kid. It's like, basically, it's like, because they're so focused on the work. So it's like, but that's what I'm wondering. Why do you get to have a kid and no one else does, is my question. Because it's also, what about Julian's dad? It's like, oh, he's not in the picture. Why? Is he because he's a bad person? Does he not agree with this whole thing? Like, maybe, I mean, obviously the fact is that's coming up means that might circle back into the story in some shape or form. We might even find out the fact is he's been legally fighting for a long time to get his son back, but now there's this whole situation. Like, we don't know. Like, hell, for all we know, he might be dead. You know, so it's all very fascinating. But like that was kind of what I was thinking, what I was implying is the fact is, because if it's a little cultish, maybe that's why Julian killed him, because it's like, no, they broke the laws, they tried to take me away. And maybe there was a part of him that was happy about it, but then there was also a part of him that felt bad about it just because of whatever his mom or anyone else ingrained in. Because that's a question, we don't know. Maybe his mom is actually really good to him. It's like, yeah, this is a community that's close to nature, it surrounds him with loving people, but I don't know, it seems weird and a little off, you know? Because Adam was only there for a few months. Bess has been there since like her early 20s. So it's like, was the whole Niagara Falls thing an excuse that they were given? Like, is that something that, because we do know that Vera had that dude came there first. So he could have came to Vera and told her about the, like, oh yeah, they said they were on their way to Niagara Falls. And now she's backtracking and being like, oh yeah, that was the excuse that was given. Like, maybe to help Julian with the whole situation, they lied and told him, it was like, oh, we're going to Niagara Falls, because it seemed like they were going in a different direction. And maybe that's also why when you look at the first episode, it seemed like Bess was very panicky about like, oh my God, like, you know, no, maybe we shouldn't be here. It's because she was so worried about it being so close to Mosswood that they would still catch up to them, find out what they were doing. Like, it was in the middle of the night that they were on the road, so it could have been a situation of like they snuck away, and it's just like, no, we're far enough away, just give it enough to, I don't know, maybe that's kind of what that's implying too. So what's also interesting though is that it seems like Heather has a connection to Mosswood too, because it's like her and a friend decided to go down there and check the place out, because it's like, because they didn't really know what the place was all about. Like I said, everyone just kind of whispers about it, just kind of like this thing. And this is back when they were younger. And I'm assuming Maureen is kind of like her friend or girlfriend. I mean, they were making out and stuff, so I assume that's your girlfriend. But because her dad had talked about the fact is that she didn't want Heather to kind of go down this route because she knows of like it didn't want it to open up old wounds, like revisiting this whole Mosswood situation. But it was interesting as her friend was there. She was like her mom. It's like, yeah, my mom has such contempt for me because it's like she had me when she was super young. So it's almost like she hates my very existence. Essentially, it's kind of how she felt. She burnt because it's all about sacrificing like stuff that holds you back, and she sacrificed her necklace to the fire, and the dude's kind of, and she's talking, and you can tell Heather's just uncomfortable. She wants to leave, but Maureen's kind of been, you know, pulled in because it's like, I don't know, I guess it's kind of like this community about those who are lost and trying to find their place. Because you even have Heather later asking like, is this all the people who are here? like, you know, present day. So it's kind of like, okay, so she's still looking for a friend because she's probably never really been back here. Maybe every once in a while she probably popped it, or maybe not. Maybe she hasn't stepped foot in it since that day. Maybe that's one of those things that happened a long time ago where it's kind of like the cops got involved, but nothing really happened. They couldn't really do anything. So I don't know, maybe that's because, I mean, it's interesting too, because Heather doesn't really bring that up, that she has experience with this place. I mean, to be fair, it was years ago, but to be fair, we don't know how far beyond that it went. Maybe it wasn't just those experiences. Maybe she had some later on that we just haven't gotten to yet. Because the last thing we've seen so far was like her friend, like it's like the dude is like, hey, there's someone I want you to meet, or someone wants to meet you, whatever. And they go, or, you know, go into that what barn, I guess, would be the closest thing to kind of compare it to, shed, whatever. Like, but Heather goes in her present day, because I guess she didn't go there back then, but it's like a giant rock, and it's like, what is that? Is that kind of like a monument that they pray to or something? Like, what is that? What does it represent? Like, I mean, I guess it has something to do with the whole thing they do, because once again, like, you had Harry asked, he's like, yeah, you talked about doing work. So what does that entail exactly? But she's like, it has to be something you have to experience rather than just talk about, you know, rather show than talk about. So I don't know. It seems like this thing keeps getting crazier and crazier. I'm very interested to see kind of where this all goes, just because this, like I said, just with everything kind of being what it is, you can't help but look at the Mosswood situation, but like, that's looking a little sketchy. But like I said, we don't, it's still early on in the season, so we still don't know a lot of things, like what went down, what trauma did, you know, Julian ever potentially go through there? Like, you know, was his mom the cause of it? Was she not? Like, are these just people just trying to live their lives, or is there something more sinister going on? Like I said, it's interesting because, like I said, there is that aspect of like, yeah, this is a town thing. People know about Mosswood and Keller, and it's kind of like, yeah. And then there's also, like, you know, Heather's situation. There's the whole situation with Harry. Like, a lot of their past we're seeing kind of get pulled up during this. It's kind of interesting because, like, well, I guess we kind of got it a little bit last season because we got Cora's life a little bit, but we never got too much of Harry. So it's kind of interesting getting, like, two different, like, background stories like that, which it seems like Heather's is more connected to Mosswood, and whereas Harry's is more connected to his hometown of Keller, which, you know, maybe those two worlds will kind of collide in some shape or form. Either way, I'm very interested to see what the next episode has in store for us. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good